Yes, sir.
All right.
Yeah,
Okay.
yes.
So, all right. As long as you can see, that's fine. So
Yeah, I can see, sir.
we will start and we'll carry on. So that's our logo. And I don't just tell you, we make you do things. The new exam is going back to the old exam as it used to be pre-COVID. And that's the group of faculty we have. I'm in Worthing. I had a colleague in Brighton who is now moved to Calcutta for a short period. We have a colleague in Yeovil, and we have colleagues in Islamabad, in London, and in Kuwait who join from time to time. Now, in our last session, Parul, you'll probably remember, and Lavanya might a little bit too, is that we started on the 25th of October. We have just finished, and we had 26 interactive Zoom sessions in which we covered various clinical stations. 27 hot seats were shared by you all, and I think 54 examiners we could manage. We had rapid random reviews, which is about 3 topics at every session of about 80. And then we did put out the learning points. And besides that, we had about 12 1-to-1 or 1-to-2 sessions, which people found very useful. So what did we do in our Zoom sessions? Well, we had communication for 5, 8 for clinical stations, 5 for videos, 5 for history and management, 2 development, and we had 2 examination updates. One which I gave, and then one we had last time when we had a very detailed explanation and discussion of what it felt like to be at the exam. Our success rates have been very good, better than I expected, but I do want to comment on, the UK 5-3, 2 unsuccessful. A lot of candidates have asked me, I'm not getting a seat. Shall I go and travel to another country? Either from India to UAE or to somewhere else, from Singapore to other places. And my advice is that if you have a center in your own country, then it's worth waiting for it. Because the 2 candidates who did not succeed the UK exam had a lot of traveling to do. One came in from Africa and one traveled from Canada. And I think just the settling in. Normally what tends to happen when you have exams, you travel about 2 days before, you get to the exam center the night before, and then next morning you are, I think, quite tired, quite stressed. And that makes a difference. And the other thing to remember is the local guidelines, if that's the right word. Because I remember about 12, 13 years ago, I was examining at a center. It just happened to be close to Heathrow. And there was a gentleman who had come from Egypt. And I could tell he had come from there because the watch he had still had the time of the home country. He hadn't even adjusted that. And the question he was asked, I still remember, was management of diabetes. He gave a very thorough and very full description of how he would manage diabetes in his setting. But the Egyptian setting of pure secondary care and specialist secondary care versus the UK, where it was a lot more spread out, was not really appropriate, wasn't the expected answer, and they had a very tough time. So if you are thinking of traveling from India to UAE or to other places, then think of what will the local practices be. If Parul, I realize that your Caribbean, there is no center, then you have to travel here. And I would suggest that travel maybe a few days before, give yourself 4 or 5 days here to acclimatize. And if you get the opportunity to visit the hospital or just sit in with the junior doctors, that would help a lot. As we are going, there are candidates you would be interacting with, and you can maybe, arrange with them to say, oh, can I come and have a discussion with you, or can we talk when I'm over? So that would be important.
Yes, sir.
We had 2 people who took the exam in India, and we are looking forward to the results, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed. So the information is from the college website, and that is how the exam would be from, I suppose, in 3 months' time, whenever. So there are 10 stations, and there are 12 candidates. So 12 candidates, there are 2 development and 2 video, and 2 history, 2 communication. So there are 12 candidates who start, and you're all given your place to start once you get to the examination center. They'll say you're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You get your mark sheets there now, and then you arrange them in the order which you have to give to the examiner. I divide them broadly into 2, talking stations and the doing stations. Talking stations are really focused history and management, which is 1. There are 2 communication stations, and there are 2 video stations. In the doing stations, we have the clinical stations, which are 4, and the development and management is a bit of a hybrid, and at the moment is a talking station, because you get the history from the role player, and then for the development examination, you have to verbalize. So you have to talk through like they did during the COVID times. So it's all talking, but probably in 3 months or 6 months, they'll start getting children to these stations also. So you have to attend a center, unlike few who managed to pass during the COVID time. You follow the circuit as provided. Examiners and role players are present in each station. Though for communication, there is no real interaction with the examiner. The examiner will just sit in a corner watching you interact and making notes. There are no children at present at the development station, but will keep you updated. And the universal cues and dependent cues are applicable to the development station, not to others. So communication face-to-face, 9 minutes, warning at 6 minutes, and you're interacting with the role player. It's about information sharing and not a monologue. Tasks are what you would normally be dealing with during your day-to-day activity, and they're not specifically written for the exam. Remember, communication station is not a test of your knowledge. However, if you do give wrong knowledge, you will be penalized. So here the take is that you don't have to tell everything you know about a particular thing. You have to make rapport with the role player and then move forward with their agenda. And how will you be marked? So I've just picked out the sheet for communication. So you get information and accuracy of information, rapport and communication style, verbal and listening skills, and managing concerns and agreeing next step. Now, why I have chosen communication is because this is marked literally all across the exam, because how you're communicating with the examiner, with the history role player, with the development role player, and the children get noticed and marked. So your communication skills will give you the most benefit besides the medical knowledge which you all have. And The important thing about communication and history is you feel you're doing the same job. In fact, history taking, you're talking more. You have about 13 minutes to talk to the role player, whereas in communication, you have only 9. But remember, there is a difference, and do not turn communication into a history taking mode or vice versa. Don't turn the history taking mode to a communication mode. Tasks would be information giving, breaking bad news, critical incident. And we have practiced some of them in a previous semester, and we'll cover more or different ones as we go forward. And as I mentioned, I'm elaborating a bit more on the communication because that is fundamental, and your body language is very important. Uh, Even in the online, people could tell how you were sitting, how you were talking, but in the actual exam, how you conduct yourself is very important. As soon as you walk in, you should give a good example of yourself. So you need to look the part, look happy, look confident, obviously a bit anxious. How you speak, the tone, your volume, and this is what we have been practicing and we continue to practice. We are all shaking inside during the exam, but you have to give the impression of being calm and in control. Focus history and management is a 22-minute station. You get 13 minutes with the role player to take the history and 9 minutes with the examiner to give you a summary and management discussion. And remember, it is about gathering information, so do not get confused with the communication when you start explaining things in great detail at the expense of your time. Cases are usually chronic, so the diagnosis will not be in doubt. In, I would say, 8 out of 10 or 9 out of 10 instances, something would have gone wrong in the previous 3 to 6 months, and your task is to get more information and then discuss how the management would go. But there are a few acute cases also. So something which is been newly diagnosed, so you could have signs, symptoms, or otherwise. So it could be adrenal crisis, henoch-online purpura, or what, but that is less than the others. So read the information very carefully, focus on the task, and then you need to organize your way of getting the history. Each one of us are different, and we have to do something which we feel most comfortable with ourselves. And do not get sidetracked and park the query. And when we do history stations, obviously, we'll go in greater detail on how you should manage to get the maximum marks. Clinical stations are 4, and you have 4 minutes in between each station. And while you're outside, you'll get some brief information about what you would have inside. So, and once you go in, you'll be introduced to the child and the parent normally, and you'll be given your task. And the task would be, the GP has examined, has noted a murmur, please examine the cardiovascular system. Or mother is concerned about her walking, please examine the gait and the lower limbs neurology examination. But remember, in each systemic examination, general examination is part of every task, even if it is not mentioned explicitly. So spend 30 to 35 seconds on the general examination. That would involve what the child looks like. Is he looking sick looking? Is he well built? Is he upset? Is he distressed? So that is there any wheelchair? Are there any props, medication? So that's the general examination. Do not forget that. At 6 minutes, you have to give your conclusion. And my advice is don't give what you have observed or what you have noted, narrating them, because that can take almost minute and a half of your 3 minutes. But give your diagnosis with your positive and negative findings, and then you'd be taken further to how would you confirm the diagnosis, investigations, management. And that is what I would normally say you should summarize that. However, if you have no idea of what's going on, then obviously you can say, I'm not sure, but it could be this because of these findings, it could be the other because of the other two. And then the examiner will take you to the same options. Development station has changed. And like I said, because it's partly without children, so you'll get the history you have to take, and then you have to note the clinical findings. You'll have the universal cues which will be given, and then the examination process you have to talk through. So when you're talking through, you will get bits of information called dependent cues, and you have to ask for them to be confirmed. How we practice, we vocalize what we do intuitively and write out a roadmap for each domain. And why I say it is that you should probably use one day as a system review in your clinical work, because during the exam, you should feel as if you're doing it in autopilot. You're not thinking. You don't have to think. So it just comes automatically. So your exam feels fluent, not haphazard, you moving back, forth, up, down, getting the child to sit up, stand, lie down, get up again. So, and then this is what you would be doing and practicing. All this is much harder than we think. And now with the children coming back, I think it'll be much easier in that you're all aware of how systematically to follow, and the child would give you their own cues. Now, videos, there are two video stations, A and B, and there are examiners present on both. So as I learned last, was that outside there's a card giving you minimal information of what you would have. When you go in, you have 3 minutes to watch the video and then 6 minutes to discuss. So you'll be marked on identification of clinical signs, correct interpretations, then appropriate differential diagnoses because of the signs, and then examination if not conclusive. Management will be discussed. So you have to talk about the relevant investigations, treatment, parent concerns, patient concerns, and then appropriate escalation. And here, remember to escalate to your consultant. Even if you have to do it twice, do that, because I agree that most of the candidates who are doing are, independent consultants in their own right, but in the exam, you are being treated for as a registrar. So it's expected that if there is something controversial or something difficult, you will inform your consultant. So that is what is being checked, your clinical observation skills, differential diagnosis, and initial management. And you'd have acute illness, seriously ill children, which cannot be brought to the examination. So again, the spectrum of what you would see in a video would probably change, because now with children being there, some things would be taken out of the video station. abnormal gaits, seizures, murmurs. Murmurs probably would move out because you'd have children in the exam, but grunting babies, yes. The questions on videos is, what did you observe? What's a differential? How will you confirm it? And if forbid that your differential diagnosis doesn't include the diagnosis actually worked out by the examiners during the meeting, then they will say, what if the child has XYZ? Now, don't go to pieces and don't have a meltdown, because you may have lost marks on your observation or your clinical reasoning, but you still can score 2 marks on the management. And all questions get the same. And if you finish early, you just have to sit quietly. So the guru mantras are: anchor statement is vitally important. Watch the complete video carefully and do not make up your mind on the diagnosis in the first 20 or 15 seconds. Because if you do that, then you block your mind to observing the video carefully. It's difficult, but doable. And so development is a 22-minute station, gross motor, fine motor, speech, and you'd normally be asked to check on one domain. All 4 domains may be involved if they ask you to assess the child's age, but then you'll do a shorter survey of the 4 referred by the health visitor. Please assess the speech, motor signs. And this is probably quite important in the history, in development especially, because think of it that the history they want is the etiology of the child's problem and the current issues. So what are the current concerns? What is the child having difficulty with? Short-term and long-term goals, and what activities the child participates at home and school. And one thing I've noted is that asking for pain is very important. And I think in all stations, in fact, that if you have pain anywhere, please do let me know, I'll stop. That's reassuring and also confidence building. A problem-oriented approach to the history that you all take anyway, and we'll practice during the stations. But remember, comorbidities and their treatment in development as an individual question is very important, because if you miss that, the role player has been told not to volunteer it themselves. So I'll let you go through that quickly. And if you are confused, or if you think the information is not clear, clarify it in the beginning, because otherwise you may be going down on the wrong track and lose marks where you could have scored very well as you knew the subject. So if you're not sure, clarify, and you'll not be marked down for that. Other thing is, when you're doing the development examination, one tool at a time. The college has got a set repertoire of tools, sort of dolls and cubes and paper and pencil. So use which one you want, but use only one at a time. And once you're finished with one tool, put it away. In history, it's identifying parents' concerns is very important, and not just what we think they should be doing. This is what we have in our modules, which you have all practiced, or some of you would have definitely practiced, and the template of roughly the curriculum we follow.